Thank you for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. I'm Rafael Carranza. Here are the top 3 things that you need to know this week.
But we're going to win the great state of Arizona, and we're going to tell crooked Joe Biden, you're fired. You're doing a lousy job, the worst president in history. Joe, you're fired.
Donald Trump visited Arizona for the first time this election cycle for a town hall in Phoenix. Trump spoke a few hours after one of the fake electors, sitting state lawmaker Jake Hoffman, was arraigned on fraud charges for trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election in Arizona. To date, 15 people have been arraigned. The 3 remaining are due in court next week. A recently passed ballot referendum that asks Arizona voters to criminalize illegal border crossings and empowers local police to detain migrants is already facing a court challenge. State Republican lawmakers passed the measure, which does not require the governor's signature and is now set to appear on the November ballot. Lucha, a Latino community group in Phoenix, announced a lawsuit claiming this measure contains provisions similar to SB 1070 that were struck down in court.
Since then, we have risen out of the ashes, fighting extremism along the way and winning for our communities. This is not 2010 anymore. This is 2024, and we are prepared to fight back and win.
4 of Arizona's 6 national forests entered Stage 1 restrictions this past weekend. That means lighting fires is only allowed inside designated campsites. State trust land is already under similar restrictions as wildfire season kicks into high gear. Risks are higher this year because of dry grass left by a wet winter. The number of acres burning so far this season is 4 times higher than in 2023, according to the Arizona Forestry Department. Dozens of companies defrauded Arizona taxpayers out of $2.5 billion in a large scheme that targeted mainly Native Americans. They were promised help that never came, and in some cases, they were so isolated that their friends and relatives feared they were dead or missing.
I was crying. I was like, I'm so tired of these programs. I was like, they're just using us and they're just freaking mistreating us. I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't know what to do, you know? Always promises, 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 and it was never kept. What they were doing wasn't right, you know, and I knew it from that first house I went to, but I just kept going to more houses because I was homeless, you know, had nowhere else to go. All these programs have caused a lot of homelessness for Native Americans because now Access doesn't want to pay out for Native American health insurance because of these programs and their wrongdoings.
An Arizona Republic investigation found that Access, Arizona's Medicaid program, ignored warnings about this fraudulent scheme. Republic health reporter Stephanie Ine sat down with Governor Katie Hobbs to discuss her response to the scandal.
How and when did you first learn about the sober living scandal?
So really early on in my administration, we looked at the report that had been produced by the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Study Committee from the legislature, which I have to give so much credit to the Indigenous Peoples Caucus who led that work. We also started seeing these patterns of fraud in billing in Access and quickly put the 2 of those things together as connected. The report really talked about the sober living home situation, and we saw widespread billing patterns that looked like fraud, and so knew we had to take action very quickly on that.
What was your visceral reaction when you first realized how big this actually was?
Yeah, I think we're still uncovering some of the scope. It's a really big, widespread problem. This is fraud against the state, but it's also a humanitarian crisis where people are being exploited. In some cases, died as a result of this.
Do you think this fraud was the result of a failure in government? I mean, obviously there were bad actors.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think we were able to see the patterns of fraud very quickly when we started looking at it.
And some Indigenous people that we've spoken to about this feel like this is just another example of systemic racism against Native Americans. They say this was, you know, the government set up the system that allowed this to happen.
Their anger is absolutely justified. And, you know, this is coming on the heels of centuries of mistreatment of Indigenous people in our country. And this is an issue that they've been trying to alert officials to for a while, and nobody's taken it seriously or done what's needed to do to stop it, and just allowed the fraud to continue.
You can find the full series on this investigation, including interviews with the director of Arizona's Access Program and the Attorney General's office at azcentral.com, or find us on social media.
The Arizona Republic. Here for it. Are you?
Arizona is Arizonaing in this week's Sunspot, featuring a battle between two top desert predators. A video released by the Saguaro National Park in Tucson shows a bobcat attacking a rattlesnake striking from under a bush. The two predators battle it out for a bit before the video cuts off as they disappear into the bushes. This time of the year, rattlesnakes and most creatures in the Sonoran Desert become more active around dawn, sunset, and at night because of the sizzling daytime temperatures. Thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and AZ Central. Have a great week.